We're good to go? Okay, I will call the Southbury Board of Selectmen regular meeting August 18th of 2022 to order at 7:01 in room 205. Can I have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first up is public comments. They're limited to 2 minutes. If somebody wants to make a public comment, they're welcome to come up to the microphone, state your name and where you live, and you're allowed to. We have time for public comment.
Got it. Good evening. My name is Jerry Leventhal. I'm the president of Heritage Village, and I'm here tonight to take my 2 minutes and talk about some important issues for villagers. First, we have 4,500 residents, and we give very good service. Police department, animal control. Jerry? Yes. Got it. So what I'm saying is we give very good service. Police department, animal control, fire department. We're very fortunate with the staff and where we live. But the reason I'm here tonight, beyond that, is to talk about some of the concern that the urgency of the 24 trustees, residents here, and many that couldn't make it on short notice, and wanted to share a couple things. We've heard that you'll be voting tonight on a detective position that could take the place of our community resource officer. Jeff and I have talked about it, and what's not clear to me or clear to us is how it compares to what we had before. What we had before was officer who was with us 5 days a week, who went to our meetings, who de-escalated many incidents, stopping them from becoming legal matters. He knew our residents, he knew our staff, and also he covered 2 or 3 other community residences and condos that we talked to today. So this is an important issue for the 55 and older community about safety. And we're going to ask you to reconsider that vote until you could understand it better, and we could understand it better. Because right now, we have enough residents that feel like this could be a safety issue for us. So we want to make sure we make that point. The other comment I want to make is, with the new ordinance on the landfill area, thank you, Jeff, for having an appointment with Dan Drew, our COO, on the 30th. But unintentional consequences, that's costing the village $150,000 a year.
Jerry, I'm sorry, but that is 2 minutes. That's the limit of public comment.
Thank you for your time. Last thing I want to say is we invite the selectmen to visit the village. I'm going to leave my business card and my cell phone at a table.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right.
Any other public comment?
Good evening. I'm Isabel Burke. I live in Heritage Village, and I'm here solely to comment on the idea that the town thinks we might be better served by a plainclothes detective in an unmarked car. No, we are better served by a public presence in uniform in a big marked police car. Deterrence is, thank you. Deterrence is more important to us than investigation. We need a police presence, and we need the public to know that there is a police presence. Plainclothes, unmarked, no help to us whatsoever. We need and want more rather than less. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rich Boritz. I live in 401A Heritage Village, and I'm here to talk about the reduction in the level of police support for seniors in town. I do understand the need for a detective. However, a liaison with seniors requires special skills that a detective will not have. Those special skills deal with the needs that are special to seniors, specifically preventing scams, educating seniors on how to report incidences of elder abuse, even from their own family. And we need somebody who can consistently be with us to talk with seniors about those issues, rather than someone who has the very demanding responsibility of investigating crime, such as a detective will have, and then give that person, 10% of his time to devote to the needs and the special security needs of seniors in this town. So I think what we are asking for is a delay in making this decision, so that maybe a more nuanced and more open decision can be made that can take those needs into account. Thank you.
Barbara Wheeler, 569D Poverty Road in Heritage Village. So I'm both a citizen of Southbury and I'm part of Heritage Village. When our first community officer came, he devoted so much time to scams and he helped people. He helped seniors throughout the town. Since he left, it's been a few years now, I never hear about scams. And scam artists go after seniors. I really would like that type of attention again to our population, the senior population. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Brody. I live at 218B Heritage Village. Just want to thank everybody that's here. We're all here trying to work together to help our community. I kind of want to just keep it really brief. I agree with my neighbors who have said that having a resource officer, a liaison with the town, someone who can be a resource to us is much more important to us than to have a detective. I'm just going to offer it from the viewpoint of a nurse and an older person. I much rather have an ounce of prevention than a pound of cure. The prevention gives me peace of mind and body. The pound of cure is basically after the horse done left the barn. And that's really no help, honestly. And I guess that's all I have to say. And please don't decide this today. Let more people actually have a chance to weigh in. You know, we're just got 2 minutes here, and y'all got a whole bunch of other business as well. Hold off this decision. Let us have more input from our community, which is the one which will be affected. Thank you all very much.
Alan Mail, 39C, Heritage Village. I just want to point out how important the village thinks a full-time resource officer is. When I first moved here 6 years ago, the resource officer was placed in an office, had an office at the top of the meeting house. When we got a new resource officer, he said he wanted to be closer to where the action is, and so he asked for an office on the first floor. The village kicked out or closed our magazine room, gave him the office in the magazine room, and he was stationed there. A little while later, he decided that wasn't appropriate. He wanted to be closer to the street. So we took archives, which is a building, half of a building below the meeting house, right where the street is, so that he could be at street level. We kicked our archives group out of there to give him another office where he would be where he wanted. So we have been moving people around just to make sure that we could have a full-time officer, resource officer, present at the village. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcia Brooker. Thank you for having us this evening. Whether you like us all here or not, I don't know. But I've lived in Heritage Village for over 22 years. And in the time that I have been a resident of Southbury, I do not feel that the town has really served Heritage Village from a legal standpoint or a law standpoint very well, because we have our own security system at the village. I think there are a lot of assumptions that may be made by people, not necessarily in this room, but who have things to say that, well, they don't need a police presence at the village. When Chris O'Toole, who was our first liaison officer, came, he attended meetings of condos, he attended all kinds of executive meetings, and not only did he make us all feel comfortable, but he really educated us to a lot of different things. And for the amount of time that I have lived in Southbury, I think it's about time that the town of Southbury looks at the number of senior citizens that are in this town that have helped to put it on the map, because we are such a great community that it adds to you, and to just not negate us because we're a bunch of old phonies. So I want you to think about your own parents, and if they lived in the village, wouldn't you like to have somebody there that could protect them if something happened and could add to some of the services that we have? Why don't you get behind us and start to have a relationship with us?
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Frank Callens-Ruscio, and I'm a relatively new resident to Heritage Village. I came from Somers, New York, where Heritage Hills is. And as a trustee on the Board of Education, I could tell you how important and how much power Heritage Hills carried in terms of the town vote as well as the school vote. They voted in many numbers. They bused people to the voting sites, and they controlled for a good number of years again the school vote and as well as the town vote. Rather than reiterate what everybody else has said, I understand that we are like 25 to 27% of the town population, but compared to the voting population of the town, it's extremely much higher. And it's wonderful to see all these people here tonight, and I think this is going to be on a regular basis. You'll start seeing more and more of us. So I want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Have a good evening.
My name is Fran Tetro, and I live in Heritage Village for the past 7 years. First of all these people are the mothers and fathers and grandparents from all walks of life that have set the stage and established things for the generations that followed us. We support the community. We support Southbury. We go to the grocery stores. We go to the doctors. We go everywhere in this town. But now I want to talk about an emotional level. We who were supporters of this country are now the vulnerable people. We are vulnerable, and what we need is peace of mind. I second what everyone else before me has said. We need peace of mind. We need your understanding that we are vulnerable, we are elderly. As much as we hate to admit it, that's where we are, but we deserve this. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Mr. Conti, okay. Almost, the third call.
Look, Heritage Village is populated with seniors. Heritage Village is populated with seniors, and to seniors, perception is extremely important. There are seniors now in Heritage Village that are fearful. They're fearful because in the past, they had somebody they could rely on. Now, you're telling me you're going to give me a liaison who's a detective. I don't know what he's going to detect in Southbury, but I'm sure he's a detective, a good detective. But the fact of the matter is, it's important that the residents who live there see that the town cares about them, see that the town thinks enough of them to have a presence, a police presence in the village. As was said before, it was important that we get somebody in there who comes to our condo meetings, comes to our trustee meetings, talks to people, all of those things. Now, you know, Jeff, I'm not a mean person, but you said that no police officer wanted to come to the village. Well, I was president of the village, and we had, I think it was 5 to 7 people that I had to interview who wanted to come to the village. I can't believe that we can't find a police officer that would like to come to the village. Also, you know, we talk about it as it's the village. It's not just the village. It's the other condos that are there. It's that side of the town. You know, when there was an accident on 84, he got a call and he went to 84. So it isn't like he's nailed to the village. But it's important that the seniors who are there see a police officer and believe that the town really cares about them. Right now, I got to tell you, there is a perception in Heritage Village that the town doesn't give a damn about Heritage Village, and that's not true. That's not true. My 2 minutes are up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Any other public comment? I see someone getting up.
Good evening. I am at this meeting tonight.
Could you give your name?
Douglas, first name Douglas, last name Faulkner, F as in Frank, A-L.
That's fine.
O-N-E-R. Can you hear me now? Yes. Good, thanks. You know, it is alarming to live in a community. I moved from a neighborhood that was a little noisy. I moved from New York, and I came here 2 years ago. Pandemic struck, we were unable to move around and meet the people as we should. But tonight is very important to all of us here, because we felt that we are being used by the people that be our own leadership who should be taking care of us, realizing that the community are based upon people who are on fixed income. We do not squeal or complain about anything that is reasonable, but to ask us that we should bear the brunt of taxation, bearing in mind that just this quarter that begun, you just raised our taxes. Our taxes went up. And we are not against being involved in the community and being a part of anything that is important. But we should always, and that goes for you, Mr. Selectman, that we should not ever think of placing the burden upon people, remembering that our benefit comes from the association, and not basically from the city. Our benefit comes from the association. We paid into it,
Sir,
and we
that's 2 minutes.
and we
Thank you.
enjoy everything. So bear that in mind when you try to raise our taxes and raise anything upon us.
Any other public comment? No. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? If there's someone, please, if you want to make a public comment, please let us know and come up.
Good evening. I am Elaine Altman, 326B Heritage Village. I've been a resident here, it's going on 3 years. My husband and I moved from New York up to this town. Heritage Village is a major contributor to the town's taxes, and we feel we are not getting the services, or that services are being denied us that we should have because we've been overlooked. As many other people said before, we're a senior community. We need to have peace of mind as we are all approaching, the golden ages and beyond. As one of my friends and neighbors just commented to me earlier, since when does a police officer have the right to say, I don't want to be stationed there? You work for the town, you do what you're assigned. You don't say, I don't want to be in Heritage. I mean, that's the most ridiculous comment I've ever heard. You work for the town, you do what you're told to do. And we as citizens of this town need to be respected and not be thrown away like we're rags and don't count anymore. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'm not heard well. Can you hear me okay? Is this okay? Most people can't hear me. But my name is Rini Sherman. I'm at 344B, Heritage Village. Can you hear me?
Yeah, speak to, go ahead.
I'm at 344B, Heritage Village, which is Grove Pond Lane. And I think there's a perspective, perhaps, that because there's all elderly people, our community's safer than any other community in Southbury. And that's not true. We get people who have all ages, some visiting, some not. We're in a very dark, secluded area. And I think just simply the presence of a police car once in a while going up and down the road can't hurt. I'm not saying we're like having lots of problems, but things do happen. As trustee for my area, I'm just hearing lately, we've had people complaining someone tried to break in their window. We've had cars who had problems. We've had things stolen from cars. Just keep in mind that we have the same problems that everybody else has in Southbury, or anywhere else for that matter. So please don't just think of us as one small little community of elderly who don't have these problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Thank you. We'll close that portion of our agenda. Next up is announcements.
Hey, Jeff, can we make a...
Excuse me. Let's get to that. Announcements, you have your announcements and correspondence in front of you. You have reports from animal control and whatnot. And we'll move on to consent agenda.
We're having trouble hearing you back.
Do I have a motion for the consent agenda? John?
I'd like to make a motion to remove job descriptions, F5, A, B, and C, from the consent agenda so that it can be brought out to comment.
Are we taking out A also?
A,
Do
B,
you want
and...
just B and C?
A, B, and C.
Even the directors? The finance directors?
You can leave that in there. B and C.
Leave that in there? That's what I'm saying. You have a...
B and C is fine.
Okay. The motion on the table is to remove from the consent agenda under job descriptions, B and C, which is detective and youth officer. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion on that?
Yeah. Why are we removing the youth officer?
That's what John wants. I don't know why.
I'm asking John.
So,
Because the only place that I recall hearing about a detective was in executive session, which I assume we can talk about because the contract has been signed. I don't recall hearing about youth officers. So I'd like to talk about that also too, as it relates to the DARE comment or position within the community program. So the DARE program is here, and part of the youth officer program was to support the DARE program. And I was curious, just, is it that?
so you want
much
to
work
remove
that-
them for discussion. The motion is on the floor to, made and seconded, to remove from the consent agenda,
I have a question.
item 5.
Sorry.
What's
I
that?
can just continue on the discussion
About removing, or do you want to discuss?
about removing them.
Okay, go
Is
ahead.
that, is there any consequence to the contract that was signed with the police by?
So just as a procedural matter, we're just removing it from the consent agenda and adding it to new business, and we'll talk about it
And then we'll
later.
talk it underneath
So the
that.
purpose of a consent agenda is if there's consent. If there isn't, then as a
We
procedural
remove
matter,
them.
Got it.
we just move it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous? Can I have a motion from the consent agenda? Can I have a motion on the consent agenda for approval, less job descriptions B and C?
So moved.
Can I have a second, John?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I need to abstain from F3, the driveway bond release. My office represents the principal on the bond.
Understood? Anything else? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It carries with one abstention. So noted. All right, under the consent agenda, we would then add to new business, discussion of the job descriptions for the detective and youth officer. Do I have that motion?
I'll
John?
motion that, discussion?
Can I have a second on that?
Yep.
Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, and it's moved to new business on item 2. Okay. Minutes, August 4th, 2022, regular meeting. Can I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve is presented.
John?
Second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed, and it carries. Bids and procurements, on-call trade services. Motion for approval?
Yep. Motion to approve.
John?
Yeah, I'll second it.
There you go. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions, and it carries. Under unfinished business, we have the Ballentine Pool. So we've got, what we have is, Ballentine Pool is, we've got the proposals of good, better, best. The question is, how do we move forward from here? What are we looking to do? I think we need to start some sort of a committee or something to look at and gather information about what, it's kind of a menu of things. I don't think good is the only thing you could do. There's better, which you could add some things to the better, and then the best is, well, the best, but you can also take better and add some best to it, I guess, is what you could do, basically laid out. We can't go to the engineers for anything until we know what we're looking for any cost, but they've given us basically 3 costs. So, Greg, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think we're all on the same page that good, better, best are 3 options that will for lack of a better way of saying it, well, we're going to eventually a la carte and pick the things that we like and remove the things that we don't. And I'm certain that that'll be one of the, the paths that we take. I definitely think it's going to be important to get input from different stakeholders. I guess I'd like some shared thought on that.
Okay. John, you have?
Yeah, and I was giving this some thought the last couple of weeks, and the concept of we're just committing that we are moving forward to do something, develop a timeline, a calendar. I don't think we're talking about this fall for a spring pool, but we're probably talking 2023. Dig it, hole in the ground. So, back out, where do the bids have to come in? Where does the project have to be agreed to? Where does this committee task force needs to discuss it? So I think we need a Gantt chart or a timeline. And my recommendation would be is that we agree to just put out an RFP to a group of contractors, ask for the better proposal as a design-build solution, and ask them to provide deducts to bring us on a la carte down to good, and ads to bring us up to best on a, a la carte, the better pool, deducts for good, ads for best. And as the task force is discussing these tasks, they'll know what that number is. And so when it's decided, we can pull the trigger. So I'd like to see a Gantt chart, a workflow, and an RFP recommendation. And I'd actually like to motion that we agreed to send out an RFP in the near future.
I don't disagree with that as a concept. I just don't think we're there yet. Mm-hmm. Like in my mind, I like the idea of a timeline. We obviously should have an idea, a map of where we should be heading. But in my head, I'm thinking more like kind of the way Planning Commission approached affordable housing. They started to get stakeholders involved, so community input. And I think, the town's been through a lot in discussing the pool, and so now with good, better, best in front of us, and it's public information, why not have another round where we get input from the community on what was presented? I guess, maybe even before that, sorry, kind of open thinking, but maybe it is, appropriate to decide, are we going to have a task force? Who is the group that's going to, manage the process? So maybe that's first item, up for order. But community feedback, I think, is probably before we look at bringing in.
The only reason I bring up, just kind of.
I'd like to get some more comments from the other board members.
Yeah, I'll say I don't disagree with you, John, but I think RFP at this point is probably premature because I'd like to have more data first and hone things a little bit better. So we have the good, better, best. We have the conceptual drawings. We have the list. I'm not sure how much of the public actually knows that these exist or where they are on our website or whatnot. So I'd like to see them put up in a prominent place and perhaps have a public forum or a public hearing or something in the coming weeks where we invite people just for this purpose to talk about the pool and invite, the various, the public in general and then various stakeholders in the community that are interested in this, who can then look at those and give their input on what they'd like to see there. Before we get into what we want to target an RFP to, or what we want to assign a task force to do. I'd rather not create a task force with an open-ended assignment just to go, talk about a pool. I think if we can, I think there's benefit to a smaller group meeting with engineers and honing in on ideas. But I think if we can sort of listen to the public first, get a sense of what the public's thinking, and then give direction to that group who can meet with engineers and contractors and see what the appropriate next steps are, I think that might be a better process to get there. Just my thoughts generally.
Holly?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I think it's always kind of interesting to me is that sometimes we'll kind of get a flood of interest in one thing, and Sometimes it kind of starts with a buzz, and I think we can see that even here tonight, is that maybe something, you know, our last meeting here, there wasn't a person in the room, and we sometimes have a hard time knowing where the public stands on something, and I think this is an opportunity, especially Ballentine, which has been a discussion item for years prior to this board. I think we need to create a little bit more buzz about it, and get more input from the public, because sometimes what happens is only a select group of folks might get motivated to do something, and we're really not exposing the whole town to it. So I think we are probably premature to go to an RFP, because we don't even know what the asks are, not only of one demographic of resident, but perhaps this other demographic of resident. And until we really promote that a little bit more, I think that there's just too much opportunity that's been unheard, so.
And I can certainly, Justin, I don't want to forget you out there on the call. Do you have anything you'd like to? Go ahead, Justin.
I'd like to hear from Maria, the swim coordinator, and our high school swim and diving coaches, ASAP, maybe our next meeting, to find out what they would like to see in the facility. They're the ones that are most in tune with programming, what does work, what doesn't. One of the things I'm concerned about is we could end up with, say, a good option. It's certainly the most cost effective, but it may not be the most effective generating revenue. So I really want to hear from the people that work the issue, and the sooner the better.
Okay. So I also think publicity on this is important. I mean, there's a group that are talking about the pool. One thing I think we should probably consider is some sort of townwide survey, whether it's whatever type of vehicle we use for that, to get out to public. Are you interested? Certainly, I think to other selectmen's comments on public forum, we want to get probably not at a board of selectmen's meeting, because it's difficult. We have a lot to do, and I think they'll be more involved, and we probably call a special public forum of the Board of Selectmen to also hear from people. And of course, getting the publicity out. I know it's out there and some people are tuned into it. We certainly can hear from Maria and the swim people. There's also, Justin, you had asked for some information. Our offices reached out to CCM to get some information from the other communities, but we did that, but it takes a little time for everybody to respond back. I would surmise that as it gets closer to the end of the summer, it'll probably get more responders, vacations and things, and they'll get that back, which is what you had asked for. We're working on that. I also think that we need to do some numbers I've been looking into how many people are served by a pool in the town of Southbury. And again, you have to understand, we're saying things because we have to consider all this. It's not a decision, it's not one way, and I caution this, it's no different than when the Edgewood was brought out. It's information, take a look at it, what do you think in a discussion. To that end, I'll say that when the original town pool was built, there was no pools in town. There was no pools, nobody had a pool. And that's, contractors got together, local people got together. Scott Pools, I think, shot the gunite, and they were not Scott Pools of what today is and going all over doing pools. It was more of a local grassroots build type of thing. And there was no. Right now, I think over 52%, and it's probably higher than that, of the population is serviced by pools. Many people have above ground, in ground, and there's also those that are, Heritage Village is served by a number of pools. So we have to also think of that. So there's a number of how many people are we serving with a pool, and we also need to look at how many people are using the pool, the reality of how many people are actually using the pool. we have to consider that when you look at the cost of a pool build and what it's costing to serve that. So these are all things I think we need to take in. I don't think there's any rush. I know everybody's, there's the pool needs to be replaced. The pool has had some troubles. That's true. We are also told that our radios were at the end of life, and oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Radios are still working. There's still radios coming. We're still operating, and we're gonna do the radio refresh. It's similar. The pool's still operating. Maybe it needs a patch or two, but it's not going to be necessary that next year, not that it can't happen, but the pool is still open and operating. So, we're going to, I think we need to gather some more information to make a good decision, because this is a serious amount of money. You're talking anywhere from, in reality, when you pick a few better than the good, you're probably looking at we have the estimates, you have cost, when you really boil it down, it could be $3 to $6 million, depending on what you go with. So I think we should gather that information. We should come up with some kind of publicity on it. We can survey, public forum, get it out so that, it's amazing to me that some people didn't know they were redistricting, yet we sent out a flyer, a postcard to every single person address in the town, but sometimes it doesn't get noticed. So I think we need to get that information out there to make sure we make a good, and let the people, ultimately, no different than the Edgewood, if the decision is to move forward with 1, 2, or 3, it ultimately will be a referendum. That's what we need to understand. It'll ultimately be put to a referendum. It may be and that's also, there's a lot of other things involved here, one of which is appropriation of money. So that would be the Board of Finance. It could be, it could be a advisory referendum, but there certainly will be a referendum on good, better, or best. So people who will come out and we will know the direction they want to do. All right? Does that make sense? Justin, you have anything to add to that? I don't want to forget you out there because you're, I want to make sure you're.
No.
That makes sense to you? Okay. John?
Yeah, just so the public knows and others know, what I had asked is to get information about other Connecticut pools that are 5 years old or less, so we can see what their usage and revenue numbers look like.
Correct. So we're working on that, and we may get, Justin, we may get some of the information back. We may need to go out, it may be something else we need to reach out, but we'll do that. John, you have something?
Yeah, and I'm just gonna, and I know there's a lot of folks here that want to talk about something else, so just a couple quick points and how time flies. It was pointed out to me today that we've been talking about affordable housing at Pierce Hollow for over 10 years. 10 years, nothing's been built. We've been talking about
John, this is
the
about
pools.
the pool.
We've been talking about the pool for well over 4 years plus. So every spring there's an article in the paper about Michael's fear about the pool not opening, and we've read that for 5 years. Will that be this spring? Will it be next spring? All I'm saying is, let's get together a calendar that we agree that we're going to make a decision and do something. You know what? If we get the RFPs in the near future, and then we have this sandwich board to look at for our work, that RFP can ask for committed prices for a build of 2024 or whatever year we end up. And that's going to help us control cost increases for inflation. It's going to help us, basically just line up what we're trying to accomplish. We've already done a lot of surveys, a lot of comments, a lot of forums. We have a lot of statements from the people that are involved through the Edgewood Task Force, through other avenues. So we need to also go back and look at what people said about, do we need a pool in Southbury? Do we support a pool in Southbury? Now we're talking about where it's going to be built and when and how and what it's going to cost. And I just think that if we continue to next time we're going to get together and talk about and have 2 people present, and then we're going to do this, a year is going to be shot. So I'm just saying, let's get a schedule so that we're going to be digging in I think it's spring of 2023, 24 would be the following year. And just so that we back into that number, so that we know where we have to be. And I would like to have that discussion and kind of at least that, that Gantt chart nailed down in the next couple of meetings. But I'd rather not have this conversation in December.
So to the comment about Pierce Hollow Village, John, the reason Pierce Hollow Village is not built is there's a lack of funding from the federal government to build it. The town of Southbury has agreed and has put ARPA money in effort to do that. Until the federal government comes up with the money to build Pierce Hollow Village, Southbury cannot come up with $65 million just to start the project.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's-
I
that's
appreciate
federal
the fact,
government.
I appreciate your
I'm just saying
sentiment.
10 years. That's-
I appreciate your sentiment, and I feel a little bit of what you're saying, that, come on, let's go.
Right.
But, right, if you think about what we went through to get to where we are through Edgewood, there was a lot of effort put into understanding and getting information, and that took time, and it is what it is at this point. I think that it's not unreasonable to say in the next meeting or so, right, that we should probably have a good idea of who the people are that are going to be a part of this group. And in my head, that's the next step. And so to maybe to at least informally get a commitment to say within the next month that we have that done is realistic, and then, yeah, and then start to work on a timeline. Have those people work on that timeline.
Because
right?
it is having the right people in the right place. I haven't investigated or looked into Pierce Hollow all that much, but just in the last couple of weeks, I've been playing around with it a little bit, I've been told by a couple of people that it's not the right builder in place that knows how to get it done.
Yeah,
And
but
if the
we're
right builder and the right people were in
Well,
place.
if you
And
want,
that's just-
we can
about
add to the
Pierce
agenda
Hollow.
discussion about Pierce Hollow Village, but at the end of the day, it needs federal funding. It's a federal project.
The point is the right people in the right place.
If we're going to talk about Pierce Hollow Village, I would encourage we invite Pierce Hollow Village. They're a private organization who have worked hard for our senior population for a very long time, and we should have them here if we're going to talk about them.
Thank you.
Okay. So, again, and in other projects we have done in Southbury that were significant, one of which was the radio refresh. The original numbers that were coming in were north of $3 million. And by doing the right thing, getting the right people together, doing the right proposal, it came in at don't hold me to this, but I think 1.8, significant savings to the town of Southbury rather than rushing, rather than putting something through. We need to think of it correctly, do the right thing for the people, execute it correctly without pushing something along quick and finding out it costs more than we should. And that's how Southbury has done things in the past. And we will continue, my estimation, will continue to do it in that direction. John, anything else?
Just one other example, it just jumped out at me, and we kind of zoomed through it on the consent agenda, but, you know, in the seniors, in Tamith's thing, you know, she's taken off of the advertising to seniors has been pulled from the newsletter for the Are You Okay?
I'm sorry?
The Are You Okay? It's just, it's another.
This
it's
is
just
a
another
discussion on the pool.
Right, but I'm just talking about, it's another, we don't have a timeline, we don't have a task, we don't know when that's gonna roll out. And all I'm suggesting is the pool shouldn't get into that boat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on the pool? So we'll come up with some proposals. Justin, you have anything out there?
Nothing more, just look forward to the data.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll see if we can come up, work with Gosha on getting some publicity about the good, better, best. I'll talk to, Gosha does a wonderful job. Maybe we come up with some survey questions. Perhaps we will, I'll get some input for that, and we will get that together. Some more, we have some more information coming for that Justin wanted, possibly set a date for a public forum. I don't think we're ready for a public forum at this point. It's a little early, but once we have that information, and so people have an informed information on the discussion. Does that work?
Yeah, let the group that's going to be formed to see this through, help develop the survey, and move from there. you
And
know.
I'll see if Maria could help, could work with that. Okay. Are we all set with this item on the agenda? Okay, next up is River Road property. I think this will go out to more than just River Road, but it's the discussion about the issues we're having at River Road. Also the town park on Little York. I've met, so first, on River Road, we want to discuss the responsibility of who's responsible for that site. Betsy, do you have the agreement, the license that, in the license that's been given to LOF, which is the group that does disabled skiers, disabled veterans and whatnot. They do great work. They have a license from us to get across our property, get onto the First Light's property. And they have a permit from First Light. It's understood, if they do not have a license with First Light, they do not have a license from us. That's how part of the agreement. In this agreement here that they signed, it's pretty clear. The licensee agrees to maintain the town licensed parcel in a clean condition, free of debris or litter, to the reasonable satisfaction of the town. We've expressed that it is not reasonable satisfaction of the town. We also, with talking with LOF, they had gathered garbage in bags and left it at the entrance, which they had the impression that it was our responsibility, and I explained to them that it was not our responsibility, but part of the license agreement that they maintain that area with this, and that's pretty clear up here that they signed. So they've agreed, and I did say we will, we can't always have someone running down first thing Monday morning, but we did get there and we picked up, and what happened was I'm not sure if there was more left after they had, or if people said, oh, there's a place we can put some more, whatever. So we did pick it up, and I did talk to LOF. There are signs that have been put up for First Light, I understand today. Again, our public works crews, they can't just drop what they're doing and go do something else. Or to what they can do, and people are on vacation, but they did put up signs that were put up for First Light, asking people, carry in, carry out, take your stuff with you. I think this board, will need to get a legal opinion on restricting parking to residents only, and to what degree we can. Everybody is very first to say just only residents. There's been court cases, and I think it's a little more complex than just saying you can't park here unless you have a resident sticker. So we have other issues, which are being dealt with DEP. Some people are coming in from the lake, from the water, and there's not supposed to be any, and that's like on Little York Road. So that there shows who's responsible to keep that cleaned up. So I've expressed that to them, and they do understand that, and they should be out there after the weekend, and they should not be leaving garbage in that area. So I'll open it up for discussion.
The signage that went up, are those permanent signs? Are they affixed? Was it like
Permanent.
Permanent signs.
Permanent.
Okay.
Up on First Light's. This is First Light sign. This is their property. They are in control of it. It is not ours. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
No. I just, because it's a follow-up to the question. Are these the signs that we're talking about that were put up for First Light that says, well, that one's in Spanish, I'm sorry. I'm not good at Spanish, I know you are, but facility rules, open sunrise to sunset.
No, those are LOF's rules, okay? That's their facility, that's their gate, that's their facility, that's their license. There are new,
So then just that one is for the.
no, there's brand new license.
I was there today.
I just found out like at noon that it was a note from one of the workers said we put them up. So I have not seen them, I don't know them, so unless you were there at noon,
Oh, afternoon today? No.
yeah, it was just like they got time to do
Morning.
it and they put it up.
So I kind of want to just take a quick step back and say that I think the reason why this issue is in front of the board today was because of the community effort, not only calling Town Hall and the First Selectman's office, but speaking out on social media. We're all on social media. You eventually pick up on these things, and you start having conversations outside of social media and talking to people about what they're seeing and what they're experiencing and getting a true sense of what we're looking at. And I know with the River Road property, we've made some effort to curb what we're seeing, but to this point, I think what we're seeing is the River Road property, the park on Little York Road. We have our state park that sees a lot of traffic, George Waldo State Park, and the Lillanona boat ramp. And to me, those four properties are kind of, they've become discovered in a way that they haven't 10 years ago. And so the things that, in talking to people, in visiting these places, the things that I see that seem to be common issues are littering, loitering, and just sheer capacity of a piece of property for the traffic, for the volume of people that are actually using it. And so we're not going to solve anything here tonight. I think that each of those properties has some unique, there are unique facets to the issues that they're facing. And so we've talked about everything from, all of these properties, I believe, are residents only except the state park. And how do we keep a property residents only, and the different ways that we can go ahead and do that. Other towns have used stickers. Justin mentioned that. I'm sure John can speak more to some of his conversations as liaison. But I think that we're just going to continue to figure out those things. I didn't even realize that there's a legal concern with, just saying, nope, can't park here, need a sticker, sorry. Because that's certainly an idea that I'm strongly for. So I'd be curious to see how that plays out.
So just know that, I've been dealing with this, it's been happening since 2015. COVID also brought a lot more because people looking to get out. And when all of a sudden we had on River Road, we had parking issues, we had traffic up and down the road, and it became a hazard, a problem for traffic. So we started restricting parking on roads and further out. People say, well, just make the town, we have like down to like, we've put up guardrails, because we would put up, there was rocks down there, and then they'd roll the rocks. So now there's guardrails, and there's some parking spots there, which perhaps we can restrict those 4 or 5 parking spots. The problem is there's state property that we can't restrict the parking on. And as long as LOF has access with a gate and a permit to go across, we can't close that, fence that off to stop people from going down there. And I'm not sure we can actually restrict that. So it's everything's just a matter of just closing those parking spots off, and we put parking spots further up the roads and further up the roads. Little York Road, we've restricted to maybe another 4 cars. Again, no parking, no towing, and enforcement. Betsy, if you have there's questions about, we're not doing anything, we're not patrolling. This is given to us by Corporal Grillo of, they're the weekends from May 1st, and I'm sure May there wasn't a lot going on. Motor vehicle stops that were on Little York River Road area, the number of complaints that came in, patrol checks, which is go down there and check that and see if there's anything that needs to be addressed. Traffic enforcement, if somebody was doing something wrong, and motor vehicle accidents, there was River Road had 2 and Little York area. This is on the weekends. So I want to make sure the public understands that. John, we can send that to you.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I think it just came in today from the PD, so that's why it wasn't circulated.
Maybe John can send us his.
Yeah.
Well, how many of those are tickets and tows?
Traffic enforcement, 14. Motor vehicle accidents, patrol checks, complaints, motor vehicle stops are 70. So they've been ticketing, towing. I know they've been patrolling, they've been there. And again, social media does not help you get action down there because our police are not.
Yeah, I mean, it's super encouraging to see numbers like 70 motor vehicle stops, 118 patrol checks. That's more than I actually thought there were. But we had kind of talked about it in our own circles that, and I've expressed this to a couple people that I spoke to just by email, internet messaging. 18 complaints. I feel like we need to get the message out that, our police officers need the public's help when there's a problem. Don't sit on something for a week frustrated by what you're seeing and saying, this is what I've heard. I don't want to bother the police with this. The police want to know, and the police can decide what their priorities are very well, but if they don't know, they don't know, and that's, sort of what I've told people is, it's one thing, absolutely reach out to the first selectman's office, reach out to town hall, but you have a whole team of selectmen here, and we all have email addresses. You can reach out to us.
But also, you're absolutely right. If there's a complaint because you see something that's going on, you can email me or any of you, but that doesn't get the police down there to say, address the problem. It's supposed to be called into dispatch. I would say not 911 emergency line.
Non-emergency.
It's not an emergency. Call the police dispatch and let them know what's going on. I hear this, you're seeing it on social media, but there has been 18 complaints coming into the police logged about these 2 areas on the weekends. So, we really need to.
Since May, so, since May. So, so there's a lot of people on social media that are not telling the truth because a lot of people are telling us more than 18. But 14 tickets, this is one day in those 3 locations, and I'm counting 20 cars parked on the pavement.
No, that doesn't, just respectfully, that doesn't necessarily mean 14 tickets, right? You don't know the result of a motor vehicle stop, and there were 70 of those. You know what I'm saying? Or, I don't know if we know that number.
Yeah, I would like to know, I've heard you talk a lot about how many tickets and how many tows. I'd like to see those numbers and see how many tickets were issued.
They're enforcing, and I too have been down there, and I check when I get time to go down there. At any given time, when I was leaving, there was 4 cars properly parked.
Can we get the count of tickets, or?
It was people parked correctly in the area. When I went to pull out, there was 4 cars that pulled in. I assumed they're looking there, which could have been what they were doing, and reading the signs, and I could have pulled in 5 minutes later, taken the picture, and then come there 10 minutes later and find that they left because there was no parking. You don't know. So This is what they did. This shows that they're patrolling it, they're enforcing it. Our PD is down there, and they're being active. So
So clearly, it's not working. So clearly, that's not the solution. So
what's the solution, John?
And that's, I've said it a couple times, I'll say it again. When you go to Norwalk, so I love the Norwalk Beach. You know how I get there? I park at a park way up north of 95, and I ride a bike 3 miles, because you can't park within 1.5 miles of that beach without having a resident parking sticker. But you can't go to Cambridge or Somerville and, you know, go there. So what I'm saying is, sign at the beginning of Southbury that says resident parking on street only.
Yeah, but you're comparing apples to oranges. If you're talking about a beach like Calf Pasture Beach in Norwalk, it's a massive, acres-long parking lot by a major Connecticut city. We're talking about Little York Park. It is an open space, one little path that goes down to about 10 feet of shoreline, and that is Little York Park. And it's the sweetest little swimming hole I've seen. I loved visiting it. I understand why it's popular. But it's 4 parking spaces. It's not Norwalk. And so we have to think about.
And just for the record, do you know how far up the no parking goes on that, John?
What's that?
On Little York, do you know how far up the no parking signs go?
Oh, they go quite some distance, and here's a whole bunch of pictures with the cars parked in front of them,
They go,
lined up.
the no parking goes all the way to the end, and tow-away zone, all the way up to the,
All
the
I'm
other
saying
road.
is, we're wasting our time, because
I don't think so. I think that it's an excellent first start. This is really the first year that we've kind of identified and tackled this, unless I don't recall it being tackled
Well,
previously.
we'll see if we get more pictures like this. I
So,
mean,
John, the other question
No,
is,
but
as I
my
just,
point is that it's a good start, right? And I don't disagree with you that what we're seeing is that it continues. And we're going to continue to figure out how to solve it, you know?
And I'm just saying, you asked me my advice, my thought, and I just know that when I go to Norwalk, I know it's a big city, and I know it's a lot of streets and a long, long beach, but you can't get within 1 mile of that place and find a car on the street. There's no Norwalk cars, there's no, so however they do it, and proportionally, right? So they got more cops, more city, more space. We got one little street, we got one little thing, and we got 25 police officers. 24, maybe 23, I'm not sure what the count is. But we gotta be able to say no parking, town only.
Yeah, but I don't understand the Norwalk reference. There's a paid employee that sits at a booth at the beach, and
Well, I'm talking
you
about a
pay
mile
admission.
before that. You can't, you try it. Go down there and move you, or give you a ticket.
Yeah, but you can't
So I'm-
compare,
but-
I mean, just to use Little York, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying a town
You can't
sticker.
compare
Like
Norwalk
when I lived in
to
Oyster
Southbury.
Bay, town
so,
sticker.
so
You
we're
couldn't
gonna
go-
look into,
Yeah.
I just want to chime in respectfully. I wholeheartedly disagree that it's a waste of time what our officers are doing. Our officers it is a group of wonderful men and women, and they are doing what they're being asked to do, and to even imply that they're wasting their time or that they're not doing a good enough job, I respectfully disagree with that, because I do think that their effort is there. They are pulled in a lot of different directions, as we know, as we're hearing. Our officers are certainly doing what they can do. I do want to just underscore some of the comment that kind of came up tonight about social media, and this one is so big to me. I know a lot of other folks use social media. I do not use social media for this atmosphere. If I'm not hearing about an issue from the public through the correct channels, I don't know what that feedback is. So sometimes, like, I did get a call a couple weekends ago from a neighbor, and she said, "We're so frustrated." And I said, "What have you done about it?" "Well, I posted on Facebook about it." Well, how am I to know about that if I'm not in those groups? That is not the vehicle for municipal government, is not Facebook. So we have email addresses, we have meetings. The vast majority of meetings here for the last couple months, there has been 0 to 4 people in the audience the vast majority of the time over the last probably 3 months. So I please just encourage the public that Facebook and social media is not the first avenue to bring about change. If there's something that is concerning, we have email addresses. We're happy to talk to everybody, but please don't resort there, because that is absolutely the last place to go to enact change. It starts here.
Thank you.
Exactly. And I think tonight, sure sign of that. I mean, plus the, half dozen emails that we got for the pool, and then pictures and stuff. So, and I know we're still talking about River Road, so just to finish that off, I sent you some pictures. Maybe we can make them part of the record. But like, they have a sign that's on town property, I think, and there's a sign code that no signs on a town road. I think no taller than 10 feet. So maybe we can just look at that a little. I'm really curious about if they're gonna make this says facility rules open, this is an open park now, in Spanish. But the last one, I think you just need to take a look down there, is, I don't know if they need a permit or anything from Health Department, but the waste, and then the 3 barrels that are marked corrosive and oil. So I'll leave this with you, but I think that place is a wreck right now.
So I'll just note, some of those things you're talking about are likely.
Your mic. Oh, you're on. Okay,
It's on.
sorry.
Some of those things you're talking about are likely contractual issues, so you can look at the contract and see what they're allowed to do or not allowed to do. The stuff down by the water, the town doesn't regulate that.
Yeah.
That's not part of our agreement with them. I'll just echo what Holly said, like about the social media aspect. Like Greg said earlier, eventually we see it, and it's true. Eventually, everything sort of comes around. But if there's a problem going on, not just down at the park, but anywhere in town, call the police department, act on it. We have a lot of great men and women there who are ready to assist, and that's sort of the way to do it. Or reach out to the first selectman's office. And then the only other thing I'll add just generally is, I think it's important that we're having this discussion. I think it's good because it sort of brings awareness and whatnot to what we're talking about. This clearly is an issue. It's a parking issue, it's a litter issue, and we need to get our arms around it. And I think we're starting, and I think we need to explore whatever options exist, whether it be permits or towing or more patrols or whatever it may be, to sort of get our arms around it and make these parks what they should be. And they shouldn't be gatherings of people dumping garbage all over the place. That's disappointing in and of itself. It's unfortunate we need to talk about it, but I think we need to have sort of a deterrent effect and enforcement mechanisms in place to move forward on that. And we're sort of getting to the end of the season here. So I think we should do what we can over the next couple of weeks and then really gear up to make sure this isn't a problem next year.
Agreed. Okay.
Can I?
Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah. I agree with everything Jason just said. My recollection is we may be 1 or 2 summers away from a bigger problem at River Road. My recollection is when DOT gave us their plans to rehab our exits, the large area off exit 13 that is being used as a staging area by the bridge repair company is going to be turned into another commuter parking lot. So we're going to have a huge state-owned parking lot across the street from River Road. So all the stickers in the world aren't going to help us over there.
I agree.
I think we might consider. I think we might consider handing that issue to our strategic plan commission and see what they can come up with.
That's a good idea. And again, that's what I said when we started the conversation. Part of the issue is there's state property there, and we can't restrict who parks there, and that's part of the issue. So if they park in a commuter parking lot or up further, some other, they're building the Rochambeau Bridge, but there's state property up there that we cannot tell them they can't park there. So to that note, they're going to park there. We almost have to come to the conclusion that people are going to park there. The agreement says that LOF has to maintain that area as part of the license. That's what it says. If they don't have a license, they don't have a light from First Light, then they don't have a license from us. If we don't have a license, and then we could consider putting a fence across saying, there's nobody, you can't come across and go down to the river. I'm not advocating to do that, but I tell people I'm a realist. What's the reality of this? State property, we cannot control. They can build a building on it, and we have nothing to say about it. They could fence it off and say nobody goes there anymore. Will they? Probably not. So there's a lot more to deal with than just simply saying you can't park there. We've restricted a lot of our own parking on our own roads. We've restricted the road parking, and it may also be that we need to maybe educate people. I have said to people, I don't think it's that we don't want people from out of town here. It's not our goal. It's could you please take your garbage with you, carry in and carry out? And maybe that's another messaging that we could work with. So we just have to keep working on it.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I do want to make sure that our properties that are for residents only are kept for residents only, that doesn't change.
Right, and the boat launch, whatever. So we'll work on that, and we'll get the legal side of it. Okay, anybody else? Does anybody besides me want to take a 3-minute recess? Just a 3-minute?
Oh, I mean, if you need it.
We'll take a 3-minute recess. We'll be right back.
But think, you can't get.
No, I get
If there, listen, if there was a sign.
is not normal.
No, but there was a sign at the beginning that said no parking. And a cop drove down there and gave out 100 tickets on a Saturday and 100 tickets on a Sunday. It's just got to be enforced, and it's got to be, right now, it clearly is not enforced. And like, listen, I don't know, like when you see the cars parked in the grass.
Are we ready to resume? Okay. I just want to apologize. I just want to, just for the, please. Okay, just to let you know, I've not even had, I have only had breakfast today, and it's been a very long day, so please bear with me, and I appreciate your patience with a few minutes. Okay, I think we're done with River Road. Next up is a discussion on the two positions of youth officer and detective. The youth officer was always there. That was just a updating of the job description and what they do, and it's a new name more than anything than it used to be. It's not a big deal. So Are you comfortable with that, John?
And so I just, actually was just looking for a little clarification. On the community programs tab on our website, there's a DARE section, DARE, substance abuse, and it has Corporal Anthony Armino, and I apologize.
Who's a corporal now? Or well, actually a sergeant now,
So
with the
that's
new contract.
that description there, and now we're talking about a youth officer. Is this one and the same, or is this?
That's the new title.
Okay, so
It's
it's one
from
and
that
the
to,
same.
it's a new title that more closely reflects, they asked for.
Youth officer is going to go in place of DARE.
Yes,
on-
yeah.
That's all I need.
Same.
Perfect.
That's okay? Is the rest of the board okay with that? I understand that?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the job description for the youth officer.
I'll second that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? And that carries. The other one is the detective's position. So, for the record, contractually and with the union, we cannot force someone to take the CRO position that was there. There were no applicants. They did not want to take it. This is something I really would like would prefer not to have said out loud. Chris Garillo came to us because we were doing contract negotiations and suggested that we enhance the position and make it attractive for someone to take that position. And at the suggestion of Chris, he's been, he's president of the union, but he's also a wonderful person, very easy to get along with. And we said, he said, I think if we do this, we will able to get someone who will be willing and would want to take that position. So during contract negotiations, as I had said I would do, Jerry Leventhal, I told Jerry Leventhal that I would do this. And what was going on, we met with Dan Drew and others, and I said, we will be in the contract negotiations. During that time, I cannot have discussions about those or what's going on, but we intend to have this, change this position to detective and create if somebody's interested in it, part of the responsibility is a liaison to the Heritage Village. I want to say Greater Heritage Village because there's Heritage Crest up there also. But mostly Heritage Village, that we can get someone who's a direct liaison. And it was receptive I thought it was receptive that this would work. So with that, it is in the contract that this position is there. If we don't have, if someone does not apply for the youth officer's position, you can't fill that. It's contractual through the unions. We are restricted through certain things. So we have had some police officers now who are interested in this position. I'm surprised, and some very good ones, and I won't, we're going to have a process. What I would say it's in the union contract. That's what that position is. That was a negotiated position. We cannot change that. They ratified it, we ratified it as a board of selectmen. We ratified it that that's what the position will be. So all of us ratified it unanimously. So this officer will come in, and I already talked to Jerry Leventhal about this and what I wanted to do, getting set up where they could go and become the liaison. I think we need to, I personally think it's a job description, okay? You can not approve this job description. That position still exists in that contract. We're just clarifying the job description as management and how long the person is appointed to this. If you notice, it's a 1 year. So there was discussions about it should be a 2-year or a 3-year or a 4-year. And the problem is, I said, if you appoint a position for 3 or 4 years, if the coverage is not satisfactory, then I can appoint a new person after 1 year. I can appoint a different person if we don't think they're giving enough attention to their role as detective and liaison. So that was the intention, and I was adamant about 1 year so that management can discuss how much time they're spending where. I also want to be clear about something. There is a police officer in Heritage, assigned to Heritage Village as a regular routine patrol area, and we have 4 patrol areas. And Heritage Village is Patrol 4. There's always an officer assigned in minimal patrol during the day. There's always an officer assigned to Patrol 4, as Patrol 1, 2, and 3. And then we have our officer who does the schools, when the roving officer who makes sure that the schools, when they get in and they get out, they're there during the school year. We have an SRO up at the school resource officer at the high school when high school is in. So there is a patrol area, Patrol 4, that is assigned to that area just like every other part of town, and is available for anything that should happen, if they should call dispatch or call in to dispatch and they would dispatch someone. So there is there. Not approving the job description will not change that contract and what it is, which was approved by this Board of Selectmen. John?
Some quick first comment on the police. It was pointed out to me just a little bit ago that I may have made a derogatory comment about police. My comment about wasting time upon these. Was not about the police. I think
John,
we were.
John, we're talking about the detective's position. We can't.
Yep. So, I guess when we sat in executive session and agreed about a contract, we were told that there was
we cannot discuss the executive session.
So the information I'm going to share with you, I heard from Dan Drew and Jerry before our executive session. So however they heard about it from someone other than me.
I'm just telling you.
So I was told that
okay,
there would be a detective position that would cover the workload that was originally as a community resource officer. And because my understanding is the vote we had to agree to the contract is outside of executive session, because you have to have a public vote, right? You can't have a private vote. So once you move out, the question I had was, send me the detective review so that we know what we're agreeing to. We just knew that we were agreeing to a detective. We never knew what their job description was. I asked for the job description at a meeting. I asked for a job description a few times. This job description for detective was sent to us a day ago. And a day ago, these folks heard about it, and they want to talk about it, they want to hear about it, they want to learn about it. So I'm really curious about, is this, the community resource officer is now just rebranded, so it's just kind of moving in here. However it is, and I wrote down some notes as I was thinking here. First of all, you all brought tears to my eyes for coming here. Thank you, neighbors and residents. Marcia, you mentioned, wasting. We love that you're here. So that being said, the resounding story is not about Heritage Village. This is about seniors and who we're letting down. Because this original community resource officer, and I'll read, and I've heard it from different people, and what it is, what it isn't. And I've heard that it's a 5-day police officer in Heritage Village with an office in Heritage Village. Say that. I've heard that it's just reporting to Heritage Village. This doesn't say that. This says a primary patrol area includes the well-known Greater Heritage Village, including Watermark, Pomprog Woods, Heritage Crest, Heritage Circle, abutting communities, and other areas assigned. It doesn't even mention Heritage Village in that first paragraph, or in that, I don't think it mentions Heritage Village in the primary accountabilities. Not until you get down further. So this document, which is our current responsibility to the community seniors, has that green area, and then all of that as a description of what his role is, or what their task is. So here's our new detective, and I didn't even think about unmarked, no police car. Page 1, nothing. Page 2. 100 words, Heritage Village Master Association Liaison. So we rebranded it, we shortened it, and I kind of looked at it, so from my management positions in the past, I look at the weight of the words, right? So I got, maybe 100%, let's say your job duties 100%, we all know job duties end up being 110, 120%, but Heritage Village is 10% of this guy's duties. It used to be, a lot. What happens at the end of the day when you get to a workload day and you didn't get to all your work? It's that 10%, it's that little bit that gets put behind, never gets filled, never gets accomplished. So quite honestly, collecting taxes and letting services down because seniors aren't heard. I mean, the transfer station changed and it's costing us money. Now the police officer, and they have their own security up there. The security is just to enhance and support us, but we're still depending on the town to help the community. Cash taking, So the one thing, and I heard this today, and I was like, wow, our town has a lot of seniors. Years ago, they were being taken advantage of. There were a lot of scam artists. They were collecting thousands of dollars, calling seniors and just asking them to write checks. And they were doing it. And who saved that? Who helped them get that money back in their pockets and was a community resource officer. So, and I'll just bring up the 3 stories that I've heard since I've lived here, since I ran for office. There was, Officer Burke is on disability. We can't replace somebody on disability. I thought about that today. I was like, boy, you know what? I hope the person who writes our paychecks doesn't go on disability. Because if we can't replace that person, we're not getting paychecks? Come on. Now again, I don't want to be derogatory about police officers. I want to assume they want to do a good job, they want to work hard, they want to represent us, they want to jump in and do everything. But I've heard from you that police officers do not want this job. So before I decide on what their job description is, if it's not to be a community liaison officer to seniors, then I think we should table the conversation so that the community can ask the police officers. I don't think whether we need a detective or not, that's, I have no opinion. I think that if you take that workload from other police officers, going to courts, talking to the AG, talking to the sheriff, transporting, people, that's taking workload out of 23 guys and giving it to one, fine. But take that little 10% out of that work duty, and let's get our community resource officer in there. And quite honestly, I've asked to see a copy of the contract so that I could read it for myself, that we can't, ask them to do this task. And I'd like to have that information. I'd like to see it.
We do have, did we get, you want a copy of the contract?
I mean, we would all like a copy of it so we can review it.
You would like a copy of the contract?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, we can send you
And
the
then at
copy
the
of
end
the
of the
contract.
day, I mean, we're gonna have a great conversation about this.
And I think what you really need to do, John, is have a meeting with our labor attorney, and he can
So,
explain.
you gotta understand now.
He can explain to you what you can and cannot do under that contract.
Right.
Would you like to,
I mean, I think that's where it's gonna go, because when we sat
right,
and decided about this contract, we were.
which included a detective's position and not a CRO.
But we were informed of certain information that we didn't have it all. Like, I mean, I've asked you a couple times for the detail of where we can't assign somebody a task. Like if you said to a police officer, go down and go walk Little York Park every day and give out 100 tickets to everybody that has a bottle of booze, they'd have to do it, right?
And our police officers are assigned to patrol that area, but you cannot assign one individual officer to do that.
Okay, so maybe there's a workaround. Maybe there's a way that we, maybe that.
Don, I'll get you the contract and I'll get you a meeting.
So maybe
with-
that patrol area becomes a heritage village, it fits all these descriptions, and it's a time of day, and it's an office, and maybe it's a process. It doesn't have to be one person. Maybe there's 5 people that rotate through it, maybe there's more, but it's a task that Jerry, who sent me a note here, I can't read the notes, I guess, that
You can communicate with Jerry
you
during the
gave him
meeting, okay.
directions, you told him what you're doing, but it's not accurate, and you never really had a discussion about it. It was a one-way conversation. And so I think because, public comments are over, so Jerry should be able to represent himself on that conversation. And I think we need to, personally, I think we need to table this so we can kind of dig into it and see what it's really about and what we can do and what we can make our seniors happy.
So I think what we need to do then is at the next meeting.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I think at the next meeting, what we need to do is have the union president here to explain to this board, along with our labor attorney, to explain the contract and what we can and cannot do. You can assign someone to be a detective. You can assign someone to be
All I know is when
but
I
not
asked,
the same one, say, this is your permanent, because they can bid for their assignments based on seniority. So if you're the senior person, you pick the top, whatever you want.
listen,
Whether it's midnights or day.
I and a group of people here feel disappointed because we were given a day's notice, like this day, to come in and talk about a police contract, which we couldn't have a copy of, we couldn't read it, we couldn't look at it. And then when we said, well, what about this person and what are the responsibilities? How do we work in what we want as a town into that contract so that it can be negotiated and dealt with properly?
John, I
But
want to
what we got
remind
at the end of the day.
I want to remind
I'm
you
ju- I'm
that
just-
you did go to executive session,
Right.
you did review the contract, it was explained, and you unanimously
Listen, I mean, that
voted
won't,
for
it won't happen again like that. It was handed to me, and then it was asked to hand back in a 5-minute deal on this thick contract. I learned my lesson. I won't represent them again that way. I will say, I'm not voting for this because we didn't have enough time to really read it, to ask the right questions, and to put our needs into it as part of the negotiation. But what am I getting now is a month later, I'm getting it's not in the contract, because we didn't ask for it. You didn't tell me, we didn't say, let's put it in there. They want a detective, we want the ability to put in a liaison officer. So now we'll wait another year or 2 years. How long is the contract?
It's a 3-year contract. Greg, you have something?
Yeah. So first, I can't tell you how moving it is for each of you to be here tonight. Ma'am, I appreciate that.
Greg, please address the board.
Got it. So what I'm seeing and what I'm disappointed from Selectman Deal is that I feel he's grandstanding tonight. And it's really taking away from the issues that we're hearing from our folks who are sitting in the audience tonight, and I don't appreciate that. It actually makes me angry because I'm listening very carefully, and I've taken a full page of notes with names, with everything that each person here said. And so I hear 2 different things, right? I hear 2 different things, and I'm happy to pause on this vote because of what I'm hearing, to kind of reflect and think about it. But here's what I see, is that I hear that there's an issue about policing, and that is one thing. And that's certainly something that we can talk about. But I'm going to read to you some of the things that I heard directly from these folks. Issues about educating seniors, specifically on scams. A liaison is more important than a detective. we need to take time to pause so seniors can talk to police officers. Lack of relationship with the town, that one resonated with me. Perception that the town doesn't care about the village, the town should be taking care of us, services are being denied to us, and we are being overlooked. I heard all those things, but to me, those things don't necessarily, for me, at least at this point, necessarily correlate with the police department. And this is somehow, for me, I don't see how this is a referendum on the police. We could talk about what's in the detective description and how to move forward with that. But I'm actually wondering why people haven't gone to senior services and asked them about these things. Because to me, educating seniors about scams, talking to people,
Excuse me.
talking to people in terms of their relationship to the town, that people here feel like the town is not taking care of them, that senior services are being denied. This is a senior services issue. And so I'm just going to share with the board that I will definitely be sticking around afterwards and encouraging people to reach out to us, because to me, this is a senior services issue. And there may be a police component and a policing component, and absolutely we'll talk about it, but there's a senior services issue that I'm hearing here tonight. And I also would like to dig into that, learn more about it, get the public's take on it, and go from there. That's what I have to say.
Holly?
I also, just as a matter of housekeeping, and for those folks who might not understand how this meeting works, this is not an interactive process, and it's just simply how we're bound by the way that this forum is. But for the normal 6 of us, this venue that we have to interact with one another, respectfully as selectmen, I would ask that in the future, if you bring documentation that we're supposed to be able to either comment on or have feedback on, if you could provide us with copies of what you're holding up, because I can't see from this distance. My eyesight's not that good. So if you hold up an older job description, I can't see what you are referencing. So going forward, it kind of seems like you've kind of got schematic about what you're working on here, but we're kind of in the blind to it. So please kindly either send it to us in advance or have copies for us. That would be greatly appreciated. Just like if you feel disappointed that you can't reference a contract, I'm disappointed that I have no idea what you're holding up, and I cannot give feedback on that. And just as a reiteration, I certainly felt that we all had the opportunity to look through that contract in executive session. There were pieces that I looked through that I never at any point felt like it was handed to me and taken away. Each and every one of us had the opportunity to look through the police contract, and we did. There were things that were important to me. I had opportunities to ask the police department, as all 6 of us did. And I think that that's really, really important that we're transparent about that, because this was not a situation where it was like, give this back. I was given adequate time to look over the things that I was looking for. And this is more of a personal note, but for most people, I don't really talk about, my history here, but for anybody who is interested, I grew up in Somers, New York. Heritage Hills, my grandmother lived in Heritage Hills. I have spent almost every year of my life from the time that I was raised in a community that is largely surrounded and involved with seniors. That is my norm. It is not an exception for me. That is all that I know. So I grew up in the town of Somers, New York, graduated from high school Somers, 1999, and now I live here in Southbury, where we have Heritage Village. I know nothing else. So for public record, and for anybody who thinks that we don't understand, we do understand. It is literally part of our day-to-day operation. When we talk about things, the village is a huge part of that. My family history, not only did my grandmother live in Heritage Hills, my cousins work security in Heritage Hills. This is my reality. It's my family. It's all that I know. So I just want to make it abundantly clear that at no point in time is anybody ever trying to ignore somebody. We often don't hear from folks until they get upset with us. And we don't necessarily have the information in advance if something is an issue. Again, it kind of stays in its bubble. And so I would ask folks to perhaps be a little bit more, maybe a little bit more proactive in reaching out to the selectmen if there is something going on. But I would encourage folks not to be accusatory that we are unfeeling or don't care, because for many of us, these are huge issues. I know that many of us have seniors that are very important in our lives, and for me, I know almost nothing other than living in a town where senior citizens are a major part of that community. So, thank you.
Jason, do you have anything you want to say?
I guess just a couple of things. First off, I'd like to echo what others said and like to thank everyone for coming here tonight. It's always, I've said this so many times over the years, this is my 7th year on this board, I really like when the public comes and actually tells us what they're thinking. Regardless of whether I agree with it or disagree with it, it informs a discussion. It makes us all better as people. It makes for better decision-making, better policy-making, and I wish we had more of it on all the issues that we consider throughout the year, because there's so many things that happen at this board on a bi-weekly basis that's done in 5 minutes with very little discussion, very little debate until maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years later, someone complains about something. And it's so important for folks to be involved in the process, and I thank you all for being passionate about that, for coming up and standing up for something you care about here tonight. So thank you for that. As far as the process that we're going to follow right now, I think it's important also, and this is consistent with what I've done numerous times when this happens with our board, if there's this much interest in the topic, and it's the first time on our agenda, I do not believe we should be taking any action on it tonight, and I'll support a motion to continue it to the next meeting. And I agree, if Chris and our labor attorney can come to the next meeting, that'd be great. I also think it might be helpful maybe if Chris, actually they're not corporals anymore, sergeants, under the new contract, if Sergeant Grillo, maybe if he had a meeting, maybe a couple of sergeants with folks in the village between now and then to sort of discuss what the police is doing for the community on a regular basis, what they have done, what they've been doing, what they plan to do going forward as they implement the new position. I think information and data and conversations and that exchange is important to inform everyone in the room as to what's going on. The other thing I just want to mention is about the detective position, because there's been a lot of talk tonight about the detective position, and for me, it's sort of a very important thing to me, separate and apart from the CRO at Heritage Village. Like I said, I've been on this board 7 years. I've been through 7 budget cycles, and in every single one of those budget cycles, I have advocated and fought for more police officers, more advancement, and one of the things that our police department has asked for a number of years now is a detective position. And the reason for that is, right now, all of the officers are detectives. So every officer in our department does their own detective work. Well, that takes away sometimes from other, it strains a couple of different things. One, it takes away from patrols or other things that need to be happening. And then 2, it takes away from the actual detective work that needs to be happening. Now, it's important for the officers to all be involved in that, and that'll happen going forward with a new detective position where officers will do detective work as well. But to have a dedicated person who can take on more complex cases and who can do that analysis and who go to court and who's dedicated to that keeps more of our officers here in town doing the patrols and protecting our communities, including the village and everywhere else. And it's a position that we've received lots of data on, lots of research on, lots of discussion on, and it's been through multiple budget cycles. That's another thing I'd encourage the public, not just the people here, anybody who may be watching, come to our budget meetings. It's like the most informative time of the year, and it's so important. 0 people ever come to our budget meetings and talk about any line item in our budget, like nobody. And it's so helpful to the discussion if we had more of that, more input as we go through this process, and for the public to hear what's happening in these meetings, because this isn't something that just came out of thin air a couple of months ago in the contract negotiation. We've been talking about it for years, as far as this position. And what they've tried to do here, and perhaps there needs to be better communication on it, is because the CRO position was empty, they've tried to enhance that position to provide an additional service to the village. I know people are seeing it as taking a service away, but I think the intent is actually to provide a service. But I think there needs to be more information and more discussion on that before this board takes any further action. So I will certainly support delaying that discussion and vote. Thank you.
And to your point about when a detective, and certainly one of the things that attracts officers to the town of Southbury is that they are allowed to follow their cases to a degree. They're allowed to follow their cases. We've attracted lateral officers from another department because they weren't being allowed, they were only a patrol officer, just go this, and the detectives take it. And the individual is kind of like, that's not, I want to be an officer. I want to follow it through. I want to. So to create a detective division, if you will, where they don't get that opportunity can hurt us, especially in this labor market for police officers. I know everybody looks at things very simply, say, well, just do this. It's not as simple as what you think. So how do we attract these officers? And by them following their cases through, where you do get into a problem for my time, for following cases. Let's say an officer is working evenings or midnights. And the other problem is they have so many days on and then they're off. Maybe they have a weekend off, or they're off during the week. If they have 2 days, their days off are during the week, or they take, now it takes longer. So this detective's position will hopefully take care of some of that, especially on a case that's bigger or needs more attention. That will help move those cases, because I have had instances where people have said, well, when's that case getting solved, or what are they working on? Well, the officer's on vacation this week. Well, the detective could go on vacation too, but it's a way it should help with that. But I will say time and again, the attraction that we offer to officers is, and what we tell them, you will have involvement in these cases and make a difference. When you talk about community policing, which is what Southbury has talked about time and time again, is our community policing. In my administration, in 2015, I came here and there was only 17 officers and retirements. They were not replacing officers. And it was being left up to the sergeant to make a decision to replace an officer. We were about to hire an officer, and I said, whoa, step back. And it took political pressure to say, do not. We changed the process. We interview for community policing, and we have ended up with a community of police officers that are recognized for the community policing. And part of that is that they are allowed to take their cases. They're not just taking a case and walking down the road. They are allowed to take their cases and see them through as much as possible. And that's an important part of, if somebody wants to go into policing, that's really what they desire to do, not just walk a beat and hand it off to a detective. They want to do it. So we in Southbury do that, and we've had success with that. This, with the detective, is part of that. And by doing that, this will create a liaison to Heritage Village. They will be here. They are available 9 to 5. They will not be rotating shifts on that. This is the assignment. So we can, if there's a motion to table to the next meeting,
Make a motion to postpone the.
I did want to just,
discussion to the next meeting.
can I have a second?
two people did address me directly, I just wanted to reply.
I'm sorry?
Two people did mention me directly, I did want to just a quick comment.
Well, there's a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll withdraw the motion.
You withdraw the motion? Okay, go ahead, John.
So, Selectman Sullivan, I did want to, so when I'm an architect, I'm about visuals, these are props. So when I hold up one piece of paper to another, it's just, one has a lot of green, one has a little green. It's just to show the difference between the documents. They weren't really that important as far as what was particularly written on them. As far as Greg, I mean, clearly, I hope I wasn't grandstanding. You clearly wrote some good notes and took some good details. I live in the village. I live with these people. I know them. I know their complaints. I know I've already heard this all. I've encouraged them to try to get out and see these meetings. Now I hope that we know what their force is and that we can encourage them to come out more, to come to your board where you're the liaison at the seniors services, the seniors committee. But personally, I'm not a fast read. We didn't see job descriptions. We only voted on a position, but not a task. And that's why we need to just take our time.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to postpone the matter to the next meeting.
Do I have a second, Greg?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on it? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And it carries. Next up, frankly, I don't have much of a first selectman's report because I have been extremely busy this last day to get anything done. The good news is, as you all know, we are implementing what's essentially Oracle financials. If it's any comfort, it's going very well, probably ahead of schedule. And that's a testament to how good that's a testament to how we're running and our books and our chart of accounts and the transparency of which we're doing this. Is there any questions of me? We'll move on. Justin, do you have anything on your reports?
Indeed, I do. The Strategic Plan Commission met last week, and they had a presentation from the Energy Task Force regarding microgrids and the Soul Smart program. I think you got a little bit of that directly as well, Jeff.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be good at this meeting that we would have it as a presentation at the next meeting scheduled.
I think we've covered a lot of ground today. I agree with you. The IPOC had their quarterly meeting last night, and we reviewed the investment policy statements, which do dually. There were no made. I don't know if you've reviewed the flash reports, but as you might expect, our accounts were down quite a bit as of June 30. So I did ask Chris Rollins, our representative at FAA, to give me a little context on that. So the pension plan was down a little bit over $3 million as of June 30th. As of yesterday, we've made almost $2 million of that back in 6 weeks. In March of 2020, we lost more than that in just a couple weeks, and we had it back within 2 months. So I would just encourage anybody, whether it's you folks or the public that looks at those things, to consider the context. Markets go up and down. We are well hedged and diversified, and both the panel and our vendor are incredibly astute on these matters. So we are in good hands.
To that, Justin, yes, I was not there, but of course I did discuss with Dan Colton about that. And you know, it's hard to look when you see it down so much and then how much, but we judge this, I think it would be worth it for the public listening that there's a goal over years. It may be way up today, down tomorrow, but where have we meet our goals? And I think if I remember what Dan told me, we are still beating the, not the benchmark, but I think maybe the benchmark.
No, the benchmark is the term, yep, and we are still beating it. And, you know, you look at the other 160 towns, we're very well funded, percentage goes, so.
Yes, they do excellent work, and again, when you're beating the benchmark was what we expected, and if you were ahead of that, that's good news.
Can't do much better, that's correct. Economic development will meet next week, and that's all I have.
So on economic development, I will speak quickly. I thought maybe there's been some social media, you know, there's been information out there. Southbury Business Association is basically shutting down. They brought us a long ways, and now it's the Southbury Chamber, which is part of the Waterbury Chamber of Commerce. My comments at the I was the last, so I don't think people wait till they hear me. Southbury's getting regional notice. People come here. People come here to shop, grocery stores, very safe environment, walk our streetscape. And in my what I had to say was, I'd love to take the kudos for that, but you need to understand that Southbury has been laid out with a planning commission many years ago in an orderly and understood to get where we are. And it's now, I would say, when Southbury, I'm very proud to say, when Southbury becomes noticed as recognized as a player in the region, from our movie theaters to our sidewalks, and I won't say what city mayor comes here, but one said, I come there to walk your Main Street. I said, you don't walk your own? So we can be proud of what economic development has done, and what this town forefathers thought. This did not just happen the last 2 years. This is long-range planning that's come to fruition, and we're being recognized, I think, for that. So I'm very happy about that from that science standpoint. That's it, Justin?
That's all I got this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Bucksbaum.
My groups have not met. LEPC is meeting next week, and EMS is trying to get a meeting together. They didn't have a quorum for the last one. So.
John?
So the Conservation Commission and Parks and Recs have not met since. Parks and Rec and Conservation have not met since we last met, so that's a simple task. The Community Relations Task Force has not met. I guess I don't know if you had any luck finding a pastor or a person of faith to join our group, but I do think that today's headlines kind of basically give us an indication of why this is an important task. I mean, the school mural is vandalized, and I think we should have a space where we can get together as a regularly scheduled meeting and convene on a conversation about how that affects our community. So I hope that we can make it a regularly scheduled meeting and get it on the books with your help. Thank you.
Greg?
So Energy Task Force met, continued working with strategic planning on ways that the two groups can work together. Had a really interesting, informative presentation on Southbury solar opportunities from It Showed Law Group, group that handles every possible thing you could need from financing to a turnkey solution, really, for municipalities in particular. Lots of interesting unknowns that got answered, and we continue to move forward with what the possibilities are for Southbury in that respect.
Thank you. Holly?
So the children of Southbury might not be so excited, but the Board of Ed does resume their meetings on September 12th. So you'll see lots of little ones running around. It's that time of year. We're, back to school shopping and all of those things. So here we are in August, and schools do resume at the end of this month. And September 12th, the Board of Ed will have their first regular meeting of the 2022-2023 school year.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? And we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.